Hello and welcome to CH105 Inorganic and Organic Chemistry. My name is Arnab Datta and we will cover the module Bioinorganic Chemistry. Let's take a look into the outline of this course in the slides. So this course actually has 4 different parts that we will cover. First, we will learn why do we want to learn about bioinorganic chemistry. Secondly, how oxygen plays a key role into the evolvement of the bioinorganic chemistry. And third, we look into the hemoglobin and how it helps in reversible oxygen binding. And at the end, we will discuss some interesting cases where bioinorganic chemistry affects our life over there. First, relevance of bioinorganic chemistry. So if we look, biology and chemistry goes hand by hand, and over there we have close to 90 elements that are available naturally in the world, but not all of them actually participate in biology. Only a few of them found their usage. Some of them work as their structural part, some of them in the function. So all these various elements affects the biochemistry, physiology, microbiology. Some of them work as a poison, some of them work as a drug and affect the course of the biology. So all these elements, we actually have the effect on biology. We actually distribute them in 2 different groups. We distribute them as essential and non-essential element. So what is the difference between them? So this essential element actually found their usage in biology. So for that, we actually look into this graph to find their effect. On that graph, left hand side, you can see the y-axis is the response, that means how the biology is responding to this particular element, and in the x-axis we show how much drug or the element we have posed. So that is the dosage. So this dosage versus response graph shows us how an element interacts with the biology. What we have find that most of the elements divide in these 2 different graphs. The first one, we found that there is an optimal concentration of the element which actually found their positive effect. And on the other hand, some of the elements have no effect at all, but at a very higher concentration they try to show negative response. So this one is called the essential elements, where we have an optimal effect. So if we look very closely on the graph over here, at very lower concentration they even have a negative effect, and as we increase the dose it actually shows positive effect, and then it reaches an optimal point where it shows the best response at a particular concentration level that we call the optimal level. And then if we continue to increase their concentration, that again shows the negative effect as toxicity, and at certain point it can be even lethal. So this kind of bell curve is a signature for an essential element, whereas the non-essential elements never have any positive effect. So they start from this response level over here that never goes up, and then that means at lower concentration they don't even bother to interact with the biology. But if you go higher concentration, they started putting negative effect, and that is called the non-essential element. So that can be only poison or toxic to the biology, but never has a positive effect. So which one of them are toxic and non-essential, and which of them are actually essential? So if we look into here, the periodic table, the colored ones are actually the essential element. That means they found their usage in biology, whereas the white ones are non-essential. That means they don't found their application in the biology. Now out of these colored ones, you can see there are 3 different colors. That is divided according to the concentration that is available in the biology for that particular element. Some of the elements like carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, sodium, magnesium, they occur in biology at a very high concentration. So they are known as the bulk elements. Whereas some of the other elements, like especially the first row transition elements shown in the green, they are actually needed only at a very low concentration, and that is known as the trace element. That means they can affect the biology at a very lower concentration, whereas the yellow ones actually mostly play the role of the structural information or the structural part for the biology. They used in a very higher concentration. They are known as the bulk element. So after we know that yes, the elements can affect and participate in the biology, but how actually they influence us? So over here I am making a statement that bioinorganic chemistry probably even affect the course of the evolution. So let's take a quick look into that. So over here I am showing you what are the different planets we have around us. So if we come from the sun, first we face Venus, then Earth, and on the other side we have Mars. And if we compare their environments, over here we can see Venus are mostly filled with carbon dioxide, almost 96%, and almost no oxygen. Same for the Mars. Sorry for this number goes a little bit on the left hand side. It also has 95% of carbon dioxide and almost very negligible oxygen. Whereas when you come to the Earth, we are mostly oxygen and nitrogen, 21% oxygen is there. So in the beginning of the world, when the Earth actually formed almost at the same time as Venus and Mars, we also probably have the similar atmosphere. But then the biology, especially through the bioinorganic chemistry, affects a change in the overall atmosphere and make it a oxygenic atmosphere around the world that we see today. So let's take a look into that, how it happens. So different geological studies has been done to find out what is the level of oxygen over the years. So first over there in this graph, I am showing you the x-axis is the years after the Earth is formed. So over there 0 means present day. If we go 1, 2, 3, 4 billions years ago from present day. And on the y-axis over there, the concentration of oxygen. So you can see both in the ocean, that means the aqueous level, and in the atmosphere, that means in the gaseous level, we don't have at all any oxygen in the beginning. Then all of a sudden over here you can see a sharp rise, and then the oxygen come into the atmosphere, and then it reaches to the level of today. So over here something happens in this particular part where there is a huge sharp increase in the oxygen, or I would say emergence in the oxygen in the atmosphere. And that particular period is known as the Great Oxygenation Event. So what actually happened there? So over there at that time the photosynthesis took place. During the photosynthesis, what happens? We have carbon dioxide, it gets reduced to glucose. And for this reduction to happen, carbon dioxide to glucose, we need electrons. In the beginning, as our Earth was anoxygenic or reducing atmosphere, there was a lot of elements or compounds they can supply the electrons. Most of them are sulfide based. But after the photosynthesis was happening at a very high rate, all the sulfides are gone. Then the biologists looking for another source of electron, and they found plenty of it in the form of water. Water was the source of electron for the reduction of carbon dioxide to the glucose. As you know, in a redox reaction, if something is getting reduced like carbon dioxide to glucose, someone has to get oxidized, and that oxidation happens to water and it produces oxygen. And oxygen ends up in the atmosphere as a side product of the photosynthesis. The first goal of photosynthesis was to use water, not to produce oxygen, but it came out as a side product. And that is where the oxygen comes into the atmosphere. And this oxygenation happens with the help of this manganese oxygen calcium cluster present in the photosystem, which is shown over here, this Cuban like structure where we have 4 manganese, 4 oxygen and 1 calcium atom, and this cluster actually takes water and oxidizes it to oxygen. And that means this overall oxygenation in the world actually started with this manganese cluster, which is nothing but an inorganic element, which is a perfect example how bioinorganic chemistry can affect the world that we are seeing today. So what was the effect of this oxygenation event? When the oxygen comes into the biology, at that time it was a very reducing atmosphere in the world. So all the evolution happened till that time, all the species actually evolved, they are actually able to survive only in anaerobic condition, not in oxygen. And at that time oxygen, because it is a very strong oxidizing agent, act as a poison to them. So a huge number of the species available till that time got extinct. So there is a huge change in the population of the different species at that time. A good number of them, they survived, but they survived by going into some conditions where not much of oxygen is available. So that is called the anoxic or anaerobic condition. And then comes the third response from the biology where a new generation of species actually evolved who can survive in the oxygenic environment. And at the end, we end up to the world we are seeing today where oxygen is a very common thing and we cannot even survive without oxygen. So you can say photosynthesis coupled with bioinorganic chemistry force our hand to go to this new course of evolution where oxygenic environment was prevailed and a new generation of species came who can survive in the oxygen level. So in this particular segment, what we learned that elements are important for biology, especially the inorganic elements, and we can divide them in two different sections depending on their effect on biology, essential or non-essential. And we can also separate them with respect to their availability in the biology, bulk or trace. We also know that bioinorganic chemistry influences the course of the evolution through the photosynthesis. And during the photosynthesis, the oxygen comes into the world and produces a new generation of species after that.